Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Pod Stash.
Before we start today's episode, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Grayman Design. Grayman Design is an Agorist-owned and operated company that brings the highest quality graphic design services to the market. Check them out at graymandesign.com, facebook.com/graymandesign, and on Instagram at grayman_design. All right, we're back with episode 5 of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod Stash. Back to our regular subjects here after our awesome interview with Graham Smith a couple weeks ago. Keep up to date on what's going on with Graham. Find him on Facebook. Check out Voluntary Japan. But today, I'm here with David, as usual. How you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent.
Nice. And we're
Ready
going to be
talk about these road pirates.
Yes, talking about cops. That's where we're going today, talking about cops. Lots of people talk about cops, but hopefully we'll be able to bring you some fresh insights. So, nobody likes them, as far as I know. As far as most of the people I know. There are plenty of people out there who do like them for some reason, but I don't get that.
I don't understand why they would like them. Like, the majority of people don't like them. You have to be like a cop's family member to really like them. That's the only thing I ever see. I have an uncle that is a police officer, and he's a really nice guy to me.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I mean, so that's actually an interesting thing about that. I think some of the older people kind of look at it like the old Andy Griffith Show, kind of town sheriff kind of guy, you know? He's a part of the community. He's there to be your friend and help you out like Andy Griffith was in the show. But that's not the reality anymore.
Well, with media like that, they try really hard to push the narrative that they're heroes and that they're friendly and that they're looking out for your best interest, when that's absolutely not what they're there for. You know, shows like Cops and I think there's one now, Live PD or something like that. I enjoyed watching Cops just to laugh at it, but I mean, a lot of times when I would be watching that show, I'd be like, this is blatant propaganda. Like, they're doing things in this TV show that is wrong. It's incorrect. They're not following procedure. They're not, following the law. They'll show them doing things incorrectly, and it's normalizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting too on Cops. I don't know. I haven't watched it in a long time actually, but if I remember correctly, there's a lot of victimless crime busts going on in there. So that was probably a bit of the normalization of victimless crime stuff like that, to where, the average person watching Cops is like, oh, they're getting drugs off the street. This is a good thing,
Yeah, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Drugs off the street. How's that good?
Yeah, for real. I mean, I don't know. Victimless crimes. We could go on a whole nother podcast.
They don't even get the drugs off the street.
No.
Right.
No, they just grab them and sell them back on the street or whatever they do.
Yeah, they're not keeping anything off the streets. They can't keep drugs out of the prison system. How do they expect to keep drugs off the street?
Oh, man, that's pretty hilarious. That's something I wasn't thinking about till you brought that up right now. Yeah, that's just nuts. If you can't keep them out of a fully locked down prison. But, I mean, that is the goal, right? The goal is not to keep them off the streets. The goal is to make money off of taking them from people and taking the money that they claim is, involved in the crime to use for themselves. That's the main source of revenue for most of these law enforcement. I don't know what you want to call them. All the sheriff's departments and police departments and all that. They're getting their money from asset forfeiture and buying all this, retired military gear and going and LARPing military out there.
Oh, they love to LARP as the military, man. Yeah, I mean, why would you want to spend the money to actually go after, like, legit crimes, rapes, murders, and stuff like that? Because that's going to cost money and resources, Don't do that. Just go after the people that it's easy to catch, and you don't have to waste, state resources to get them. Like there's something in this state in Washington. There's something like close to like 6,000 something rape kits that haven't been dealt with, and it's for a lack of funding, and they want like something like some $3 million federal grant to be able to test those kits. So these are things that they should already be doing, but they can't afford to do it.
Yeah, it might even be a higher number than that. I can't remember. Maybe I was looking at the national one, but there's just ridiculous amounts of those kits that have not been tested. But it's all kind of a vicious circle there, and all these police departments claim they're underfunded and whatnot, so they can't do that, and yet they're buying up this military gear and whatnot at a discount, off of the money that they've seized or made auctioning off a lot of the stuff that they've seized. And it's like, aren't these departments supposed to be funded by the government, by them stealing money via taxes and whatnot to go out and quote unquote protect and serve, and yet they're underfunded, so they can't do that, but they're told to take the money and the drugs and whatever and make money off that to keep doing what they're doing. It's the for-profit kind of thing of it, and it's not, the profit's not even there to do the job that they're supposedly there to do. It's just there to create more revenue for themselves.
I know in the city that I grew up in, they were talking about how they were so underfunded, and then as they were talking about how underfunded they were, the whole police force got new Dodge Charger cars. I was like, really? So underfunded?
Yeah, gotta ride
just
in
want
style.
cool new toys.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's to catch the criminals,
Well, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of money to go out and, I don't know, grab a fucking dime sack off of somebody and take the $100 out of their wallet or something, to target people, to profile and do that, and throw them in jail too, so that the for-profit prisons are, making money off this as well.
I sent you that joke post that I saw last night where it was obviously a joke, but I could see police forces trying to do that, where the joke post to the people listening was somebody, or that because of the backlog in paperwork, etc., they were gonna, and this is a joke, they were gonna make it so that you could just pay the fine or whatever up front right there to the cop, no paperwork, no nothing, just give them money or something or whatever to make it go away. But I could see that becoming a reality.
Oh yeah, that was the one for the traffic violations. Like if there's a traffic violation, you can just take care of it right there on the side of the road. But the picture was a cop having sex with someone on the hood of the car, get it out of the way however they want. I mean, it's not like that doesn't happen. It's a joke article, but I mean, how many articles have you seen where cops have been busted for doing that?
Oh yeah, I mean it happens, so it's not too far from the truth.
It wasn't that long ago. There was one about, I think it was a porn star that ended up exchanging sexual favors with a cop to get out of something, and ended up still getting arrested, and then sued the cop and the department or something like that. I don't know. It was a whole mess, but I wasn't shocked or surprised by the mess that it was.
I'm not shocked by much anymore coming out of the corrupt police forces. It's insane. Well, I don't even understand how people can still look at the police force and think that they're doing anything other than, criminal activity.
They just show up and write the report if there is an actual crime anyways. It's not crime prevention. That comes down to private security, which vastly outnumbers police, at least in the U.S., if not the world, and is more effective at preventing crime. Private security and just regular people who see something bad happening and do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I think I was really young. I called it the one and only time I've ever called the police on anybody, and it was I had a portable CD player, Walkman, whatever, and somebody had stolen it, and I knew it was mine. I could see it. I knew it was my headphone set up, everything like that, and I had the cops brought in on the situation, and they ended up giving my property to the person who stole it because they couldn't prove it or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, that was, I was really, really young, and that like definitely solidified in my head, that these guys aren't here to do what they say they are.
Right. Well, something back to the asset forfeiture as well that kind of dovetails in with they're not here to do what they say they are. When they do seize property, in conjunction with an arrest or whatnot, it becomes the burden of proof shifts to the owner to prove that it's their property. It's guilty until proven innocence. It's like, is this your property? Well, now you got to prove it and prove that it's not being used in a crime or anything like that. So it's just a whole racket to keep it themselves.
Oh yeah. I mean, we all see the videos of the just blatant violence that cops bring upon the general population for little or nothing. That somebody jaywalks and a cop will beat someone within an inch of their life for it just because they looked at the cop wrong when the cop was telling them to stop.
Oh yeah. There's from my hometown in Tucson, I believe, that was a video of a cop that ran up on a pretty small drunk girl. She was a University of Arizona student. I can't remember if there was like riots or whatever, the sports team riots when U of A won or lost or something like that. There's a bunch of drunk people everywhere, and I think she did actually just jaywalk and then was walking down the sidewalk, and this cop saw her and ran up full speed and just body checked her as hard as he could in the back and knocked her down, knocked her out, hurt her really bad, and ended up getting off without any charges, nothing.
To protect and serve, in quotes.
Yeah, exactly. It's those air quotes. And the quotes on the car, yeah, because it's not actually serious.
As if they're being sarcastic.
Yep. Dirty bastards. But, well, we know we don't like cops. We know the stuff that they do is dirty. So I guess the question then is what to do about it. I'm not on board with the people who are like, it's time to go start shooting cops. I think in self-defense, yeah, shoot a cop if you need to. If you're being aggressed upon by a cop and you have the opportunity to defend yourself, just know that it's gonna be hard to get out of that one. But if it's your life versus not having a life, if it's your life trying to prove your innocence and stay out of jail because you shot a cop that was going to kill you, I'd say that's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wish death on anybody, but if somebody's defending themselves, then yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There was a Supreme Court case I should have looked up before this, where they ruled that you have the right to defend yourself against the police up to and including killing them when they're, it was, I believe it's something along the lines of, if they're making an unlawful arrest and using too much force while trying to arrest you, you have the right to use the same amount or more force, something along those lines. I should have looked it up. But the Supreme Court says that you're allowed to, or it might have been a state Supreme Court. I'm not exactly sure. So
well, I'm looking right now.
Look into it a little bit more. I suggest everybody look.
I'm looking right now. There was one last July saying New Jersey citizens are allowed to defend themselves against police brutality. That might be one. And then there's a lot of Supreme Court cases, like just individual cases talking about that as well. But, even if that was a thing, it's kind of funny because if you're defending yourself against a cop who's using excessive force, more than likely there's more than one, and you're going to try to defend yourself, but you're still going to get, fucked up because you're going to be fighting, and they're going to keep yelling, "Stop resisting," and they're all going to dogpile on you, like we see in multiple videos of people getting messed up and even killed unjustly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that even if they say it's allowed, that thin blue line doesn't care. They're a gang, and if you hurt or assault, or not assault, that's the wrong word. If you defend yourself and end up hurting a police officer or killing a police officer, all of his buddies aren't going to care. They're not going to care what the laws are because they don't care about the law, and they're going to come and try to enact revenge regardless of what the government says, because they feel that they are their own entity.
Yeah, they're the biggest gang, and they say it. They straight up say it. The blue gang's the biggest gang.
Oh, yeah. The majority of cops that I've known throughout my life have said that to me. Like, don't mess with us. We're the biggest gang, and we're legal. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That cop from Baltimore that joined the Black Lives Matter movement, he's like an advocate for Black Lives Matter now, is Michael Woods Jr. I think he was on Jopra a couple times, and he's been on other stuff. He talks about that. Talks about being the biggest gang out there. I did listen to the Rogan podcasts with him on it, and a couple other things where he was talking, and I fucking hate that guy. I can't stand him. I appreciate that he brought a lot of stuff to light, like the actual systemic problem that targeting not only black people in Baltimore, but targeting poor people as well, and it happens everywhere, to keep them in those areas and producing more revenue for the police departments through asset forfeiture and for-profit prison and all that kind of stuff, and just ruining people's lives to keep them pretty much as asset forfeiture cattle, But that guy's such a fucking asshole, because he still talks like he's a cop, and he says we, like he's one of them. And the only reason he decided to be a whistleblower was because he couldn't physically be a cop anymore because of an injury that he got. He got his shoulder dislocated, went through, physical rehab and trying to get everything back in working order, went back to the force, dislocated badly, just taking a turn in his car again. It's like, well, I can't be a cop, so what am I going to do? And then he decides to seek his 15 minutes of fame, quote unquote, exposing cops. And then in the next breath goes around advocating that cops have better, more powerful weapons, and civilian, people have none. He's super pro gun control and pro more budget and power for cops. And it's like, what the fuck is this guy? Doesn't make any sense.
Hey, but the police swore an oath to the Constitution, Nick. They won't do anything to our guns.
Yeah, which was overturned by the Supreme Court when they said that police don't have a constitutional duty to protect a person from harm. It's Warren versus D.C. Stupid. I don't know. It's just I can't help but feel that he's just a plant. He's out there, a plant by police unions or whatever. Not to be getting into tinfoil hatness, but it just really feels that way.
I'll strap on my tinfoil hat, man. I believe that. That's what I was thinking. I don't know anything about that dude, but that's what I was thinking while you were talking about it. He's probably a plant.
It's just the way he talks.
It's on record fact that they do things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a piece of shit. So fuck you if you're fuck you, Michael Woods Jr.
If anybody's listening that really thinks that the police wouldn't, confiscate guns or whatever if it came down to it, there's plenty of historical evidence in the very recent past that proves that completely incorrect. Hell, just look at Waco.
Well, yeah.
Katrina, I could go on.
It's everywhere. It's the Boston bombings when there was, martial law, and they're going around saying, you got to open up the door so we can look for the bombers, and they're taking drugs, they're taking guns, and arresting people all through that. It's bullshit.
I mean, now we got red flag laws happening where, if you're quote unquote mentally unstable or whatever, if you have mental problems, etc., you suddenly can't have guns anymore. Like, they can just take them away from you. No court, anything. Like, somebody just signs a piece of paper and suddenly you're not allowed to defend yourself anymore. That's bullshit.
See, that's a super, super dangerous thing there. Well, I believe it was in Oregon, 47 or 48 people had their weapons confiscated. And that was only like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that was under the mental health thing. The state decided that they were mentally unstable enough that they shouldn't have guns, and I don't know, I might be wrong, but because I don't have this in front of me, but if I remember, it was if they had reports from friends or family members saying that they were a threat to themselves or others, something like that.
That's ridiculous, man.
Well, it's just the example right there. They will take your guns.
Oh, yeah. Any chance they get, they will. They don't want to defend, they don't want a population that's able to defend itself. They want everybody, being as subservient to them and the system as possible.
Yeah, that was... speaking of not wanting people to defend themselves, that was one thing Michael Woods Jr. said too, is that, even if you have a gun, you're probably not going to be able to do anything with it that you think you are. You'll just get disarmed or something like that. So people aren't responsible enough to have guns. They're not trained enough. Just let cops have all the best guns, and you can go check out a gun from a gun library if you want to go hunting, is pretty much what he was saying. And that's fucking ridiculous. He even said to Rogan, he's like, you go put on a gun, open carry, concealed carry, whatever, and go about your day, and we'll do this challenge where I'll know where you're going throughout the day, and I'll be able to disarm you without you pulling it on me at any point in any time, because he thought he was so well trained that he'd be able to do that. I disagree. I don't think he'd be able to do that. And that's kind of a tangent, but
I don't think that they're well trained enough to be able to do that kind of thing. Like, the thing is that they rely on people, to allow them to disarm them. Like, you're supposed to, if you have, concealed carry, etc., if you have a weapon on you, you need to announce it to them, depending upon the state law of various states. But you're supposed to inform the officer that you're carrying and then allow them to disarm you. So right away, they immediately, before they even explain why you're stopped or anything happens, they disarm you, and you're not able to defend yourself in the same capacity as they can assault you or bring violence against you.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't had that happen with cops ever. But I have had that happen a couple times with Border Patrol, because I used to have to deal with Border Patrol checkpoints a lot when I was living in Arizona. Go figure, Border Patrol checkpoints within the U.S. border. Ridiculous. But, yeah, guns pointed at me until I gave in to their orders, which fucking sucked.
And, even if you follow those laws, what was that guy? I think Philandro Castile. God, I probably slaughtered that.
Yeah.
But, he was legally carrying and did everything that he was supposed to do, and they still shot him.
Yeah,
and
that was
killed
straight
him.
up murder.
That was on a Facebook Live. Everybody saw it, and it's just absurd. I feel bad for that guy. And wasn't his daughter in the back seat?
Yeah, and his girlfriend in the front seat as well. That was just disgusting.
Yeah, I remember the girlfriend, and that little girl. I remember that now. Yeah, just screaming. That breaks my heart, man. I got a daughter, and it hits too close to home.
Yeah, and so you were talking about they think that they're, badass and trained enough to be able to handle these situations, and yet they're shooting with their backstop being a little girl, and that's definitely not the only time that's happened. There's that one where the cop went to shoot the family dog in the living room and ended up shooting a little girl in the face. Thank God she didn't die. But it's so many times.
Yeah, she got a ricochet or something like that.
Yeah.
God, I remember that video. Oh,
it's just
like those the videos, man. They could go. You go ahead.
It's just ridiculous because they're nothing special. They're just people, usually dumb people, who want to have that power that they, think they have as a cop, the gun and the badge and all that stuff. And they're not good people for the most. Everyone always says, they probably went in wanting to help people. I don't think so. Going back to douchebag Michael Woods Jr. again, Rogan asked him that. He said, well, did you go in wanting to help people? He's like, I wanted to be a badass. I wanted to go play with the toys. I wanted to drive the cars fast and shoot the guns. And I think that's what the majority, like 99% of them, go into it thinking.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that there's some that do, want to become a cop to help people. But I'm also sure that they leave almost immediately or just don't go through with it. They realize, they look at it and they're like, well, that's not actually... If I became a cop, I wouldn't be actually helping people. I could do plenty of other things in other avenues that would actually help people.
Well, and if they don't
I don't believe that.
They just get screwed over by the blue gang because they want to help people, but they find out real quick that they're not able to help people because they got to do their revenue collecting. And if they cross that fucking line, they're going to get screwed over by their, quote, brothers and sisters in blue.
And I mean, I wonder how many become cops also because they want to be above the law. Because, when you're a cop, you don't get treated the same. In our state, a cop was arrested for a DUI. Crashed an unmarked police car not that long ago. And they found out he was an off-duty cop. And he was arrested and released in the same day. And placed on administrative leave pending internal investigation, and that was it. I haven't been able to find any other information on that case.
Well, no, because it's hush hush, They don't want anybody else to see into that. But yeah, there's a lot of negativity around this. There's tons of videos. There's tons of reports. There's all kinds of stuff out there, and people are still, I don't know, somehow, I guess, willfully ignorant to the fact that cops are not the best way to handle problems in the world we live in now. And it'd be pretty easy to fill up this hour with negativity and stuff like that, but I thought it'd be cool to talk about possible solutions or maybe even some positive things out there in the world of crime prevention, not law enforcement, because law enforcement's bullshit, but crime prevention or peacekeeping, anything like that. And I know I've referenced it before on the pod stash here, but the Detroit Threat Management Center is one of the coolest stories of that ever, with just a shining record. It's awesome. So if you haven't checked it out, check out Detroit Threat Management Center. Check out their story. You can. They're actually, the founder is on an episode of Tom Woods, and he tells a lot of stories from the beginnings of him starting the Threat Management Center, and it's really cool how he handled stuff non-violently without even calling the cops to, arrest people. He was dealing with a lot of drug dealers that they weren't just selling drugs, non-violently giving people what they wanted. They were, harming people in the neighborhood, claiming areas as their own, that kind of stuff. And he didn't ever have to even call the cops and have them arrest them. He took care of the situation himself non-violently, very, very efficiently, and it's really awesome.
We need more solutions like that, because there are situations that a regular person wouldn't want to deal with, and I believe that there should be people that are more equipped and want to deal with those kind of situations that can go and handle them. But it definitely shouldn't be anything like law enforcement. Like you said, it should be, crime prevention and communities coming together and neighborhood watches and things like that. That's that's a solution for some of the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that. I don't know if it's a meme or just a picture going around, but it says, "Don't talk to cops." A strong neighborhood makes cops obsolete, and it's true. If you have a neighborhood where everybody's looking out for each other, there's no reason for cops there. It even goes to like say a gated community. Cops can't even go in there because it's all privately owned, and they generally have their own security that patrols at night or whenever, and it's all controlled by the property owners. And you don't hear nearly as often, and I don't know if I've ever heard of private security, screwing around with people that are paying them to do a job. That's the big difference. Is they're being paid. They have customers. They have to provide a good service, or they're going to lose their customers. They're going to lose their livelihood, and that's I guess the capitalist side of private security and policing. But it works. And then if you're not interested in that, the strong community thing, neighborhood watch, like you were saying, is great. I don't have a big community where I live. There's houses here and there around. I know a couple people, but we don't get messed with, and everybody can kind of see what's going on and would do what they needed to do to stop someone from messing with their neighbor's stuff,
Yeah, with that though, the state definitely does not like people being self-sufficient and moving away from police, etc. I know a lot of people, I'm sure, know about the move bombing in the 80s, but there's a lot of people that don't. And if you don't know, it was in West Philadelphia, a West Philadelphia neighborhood in 1985, and the police came in and there was a standoff, and they ended up killing 11 people. They dropped two 1-pound bombs on this neighborhood of people who, and the movement or group were just people who wanted to, it was kind of a black empowerment movement, people that wanted to move away from the government, be self-sufficient, not rely on police, etc. And they weren't having it, and they bombed them. They took commercial explosives and dropped it from a police helicopter, and they even strapped C4 onto these explosives to make it a little bit more powerful, and put something like 10,000 rounds of ammunition into this house or towards the house, and destroyed 61 homes. That's insane.
Yeah, and they promised
that's
to fix
waging
them too,
warfare on the streets. Yeah,
but they never have.
I wonder if anything was. I don't think they ever have. I didn't find much information on that.
I think I saw an interview with someone who still lives there, that lived there at the time, that still has problems with their house, and they can't leave because they can't sell the house to get money to buy a new house because it's all screwed up from that incident that many years ago.
Jeez, it's not surprising at all.
No, so yeah, definitely got to watch out if you're going to try to, challenge the government's monopoly on violence. But that's something I was thinking about with the, strong communities make cops obsolete. If you're policing yourselves, I guess, for lack of a better term, if you're watching out for each other, and you can't just tell the cops to fuck off, like, don't come on these streets, they're obviously not going to take that very well and probably ramp up their violence and intrusion. It'd be pretty easy in more of a city setting, I guess, possibly rural, but if you have your neighborhood, everybody watching out for each other, and you don't want the cops there, make that part of the neighborhood watch. If someone sees a cop coming in, throw it up on I would assume you have a social media community group for neighborhood watch, or maybe a group text or something like that. Be like, oh, cop coming in at this corner, this street, and this street, something like that. Just watch out for them. Alienate them through communication.
There's even apps for that I know of now, at least traffic apps that people will mark where the police are, and it's other things too, traffic accidents, etc. But I believe the one that I'm thinking of is called Waze, I think.
Yep.
But things like that. I believe there will be a lot more apps like that, pointing out police activity and things like that in the future, because it's just ramping up. It's not getting better. They're getting worse.
Yeah, Waze is pretty awesome too, because it filled you know, a demand of the market to know where cops are, where speed traps, all that stuff are. When previously, you've seen people go out with poster board and they write speed trap ahead or something like that, and they go stand, I don't know, a few hundred yards or a half mile ahead of where the cop's sitting, waiting to try to extract revenue from people who are, breaking the arbitrary speed laws. And those people get harassed and arrested a lot. For what? I don't know. Maybe they call it interference, obstruction, whatever. It's not illegal to say there's a cop ahead, but those people get fucked with by the cops for doing that. So apps like Waze kind of take them getting fucked with out of the equation, which is nice.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's like interference in a police investigation or something like that. And one of those laws, there's enough wiggle room that they can put it over that person. But that's ridiculous. They don't want people stealing their revenue, man. They got to make that money. And supposedly quotas are not allowed, but we all know that's BS.
Absolutely.
The police have quotas. They have to arrest a certain amount of people,
or tickets
they get in
or whatever.
trouble.
Yeah. No, I've firsthand account of the quotas. A house I rented in Tucson, the homeowner was a younger dude. He was a cool guy. He was telling me he was leaving to go be a Forest Service agent, I think. And previously he had been a traffic cop in that town. And I was asking him how he got into that. He's like, well, it's kind of hard to get into the Forest Service around this state if you don't have law enforcement or military experience. And he didn't have any of that. So he's like, well, I'll just go. It'll be easy to be a cop. That's easy to get into. I'll do that for the year or two that I need to get the experience, and then I'll get out and go work at a Forest Service. And so he went into the local PD, and they put him on as a traffic cop, and he would get written up and reprimanded, monthly for not meeting his quotas of writing tickets because he didn't want to. He let people off with warnings and stuff. And he was telling me, yeah, there's absolutely quotas. They don't call them that, but they're there. And you have to make them, or like what happened to me, you'll get in trouble for not making them. And he ended up actually quitting earlier than the time he needed to get the experience because he didn't want to do it anymore. He's like, I'm not going to do this to people. So that's an example of a good cop. Sees that's fucked up and he quits.
I'm sure the majority of quote-unquote good cops are just cops that have quit.
Yep.
I seriously doubt. Everybody says, what is it? It's the bad apple argument,
Yeah, the one bad apple spoils the bunch.
Yeah. You got to get rid of those bad apples, though, because it will spoil the bunch. It's not like, oh, don't let one bad apple spoil the bunch. Yeah, no. That's the point. If you have bad apples, you're supposed to get rid of them, not continue to fill the thing with bad apples.
Well, and the picture now is throwing a healthy apple on top of the pile of already rotten apples is pretty much what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see there being any good cops, really.
I agree.
And then there's the what is it, Dr. Higgs quote where, the police, upon becoming an officer, you have to, enforce these unjust, immoral laws.
Yeah.
So automatically you're not a good cop.
His argument for no good cops. Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick, and we'll throw that out there. I know most people that I
can't remember
across
word for word.
And most people I've come across have seen this, but if you haven't, Dr. Higgs, awesome guy, sticks to his principles. As far as I know, not joining the LP. He's still an anarchist, which is fucking sweet. But he says the good bad cop question can be disposed of decisively. We need only consider the following. 1. Every cop has agreed as part of his job to enforce laws, all of them. 2. Many of the laws are manifestly unjust or even cruel and wicked. 3. Therefore, every cop has agreed to act as an enforcer of laws that are manifestly unjust or even cruel and wicked. There are no good cops. It's that easy. if you don't have the opportunity to make a judgment call when you're, enforcing a law, getting somebody in trouble, you're just following orders blindly. Law does not equate to morality. And if you do make that judgment call and you don't enforce the law, you're breaking policy in, police force or whatever. You're screwed either way. It's not possible to be a good cop.
Yep.
But
exactly.
It's hard to relate this kind of stuff to people who do believe that cops are good and necessary. That's without just getting in, yelling matches or online arguments.
Oh, that they have to experience it. A lot of these people that believe that, that the police are good, their main argument is, I've dealt with the police, such and such amount of times, and they've never done anything to me. And I'm like, yeah, well, you immediately bend your knee to them. You immediately do everything that they say, even if they're not allowed to tell you these things or do these things. You do it immediately when they order you to. That's why they don't, just try one time not doing what they say and see how quickly their demeanor changes, because it does. You can be like, yes, master, and like lick boots, and they will be nice to you. They will, treat you with supposed respect, even though that's not respect. They're talking down to you. They're speaking down to you. They view you as lesser than them. And the second that you try to act like, hey, I don't have to listen to you. You're not in charge. You're not, you work supposedly for me, etc. They don't like that, and they switch. So yeah. I think a lot of that comes from people just being, immediate, like nervous, whatever. Because yeah, it's scary to get stopped by the cops. But if you immediately bend down and bow to them, of course they're going to treat you a little bit nicer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of easier to relate to, I guess, like constitutionalists, people like that, with the slogan "comply or die." What you're telling me is comply or die with the cops, right? So what happened to your heroes, the founding fathers, with their rallying cry of "Give me liberty" or "Give me death"? I don't think they would have rallied around comply or die. I think that was the opposite.
Oh, yeah.
That's a decent way I've found to relate that, but...
I usually just get the comply or die mentality from most people. They don't... or you're just a criminal and you break the laws, so therefore that's why you don't like the police. Well, I mean, realistically, I could probably fight, tell me your day-to-day routine, and I could probably find all sorts of things that you're doing that is actually illegal, and they can come after you for. So.
Yeah, isn't there like that something, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I think there's a statistic out there saying that the average American commits 3 felonies a day unknowingly because there's so many laws.
Yeah, you can't know all the laws. It would take a lifetime to try to go through all the laws. There's no way.
Well, that's just one more trap they've set up to collect revenue there, too.
Oh, yeah. And the police use it. They'll be like, hey, you don't know the law. I'm here to enforce it. You don't know the law. Well, that's ridiculous. So the person who's supposed to be following all these things, you just assume doesn't know the law because there's too much, or it's too hard for them to understand. How is it acceptable for you to say that they have to follow these laws when you also expect them not to know it?
Well, and then you see a lot of times those cops getting schooled by people who do know the law, and I'm honestly surprised how often they walk away, or a supervisor comes up and says, hey, he knows it, he's not doing anything wrong, have a good day. You see that a lot in those videos, but you also see, even when someone does know the law, still getting arrested, still getting the shit kicked out of them, something like that. It's kind of half and half, one way or the other, depending on how that cop's feeling that day. And that's definitely not how it should be.
And yeah, it seems a lot of it is up to how a cop is feeling that day, or what cop you encounter, which is ridiculous.
Yep. I would say solutions to this are, like we talked about, strong communities, private security kind of stuff. I really think the way Detroit Threat Management Center handles it is great, and it's popping up all over the place. It's not just them; it's happening all over the world, everywhere. Private security coming up and just making cops obsolete, which is the goal, right? Making the government, including cops, obsolete, showing people a better product. That's literally what's happening, and it's awesome. Rothbard in For New Liberty goes over in detail about his idea of a solution as far as private security and insurance agencies. Like, you have a subscription to your insurance agency to secure your property, your goods, that kind of stuff. And if it's stolen, they'll go after whoever, or they'll investigate it. They'll see if they have anything to go off of, or they'll replace your stuff because you've paid your insurance fees. And I think that's one solution. I don't think it's the end all be all, but I think it's a good jumping off point.
Yeah, I'm not huge on private security, but I accept that lots of people would be fine with that and would want that. And hey, good. If that's what they want, I believe that it would be far superior than what we have right now with the police. And I would worry that eventually it could become something similar, but at the same time, with different competing agencies, the market would then decide.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely something that comes up a lot in the conversations about the insurance agencies with their own private security and whatnot. The arbitration would have to be separate, and yeah, it could turn into another state, but hopefully the market would find a way to keep it from doing that. It's something I definitely am meaning to look into more. But I had a conversation with someone a little while ago about that. And said, if I'm walking down the street and say me, I had stuff stolen from me, my insurance agency that I pay to either recover it or replace it goes and they're like, all right, this guy here, we think he took it, and they go nab him and he fights back. What happens? He says, I have the right to fight back because I didn't do anything. And he's absolutely right. They can't just go nabbing people off the street like the cops do now. But that was an interesting point in For a New Liberty, that these insurance agencies and the employees of the agencies would have to know for a fact that they found the person who aggressed against their client and stole their belongings, for example, before making any arrests or anything like that, because they're actually accountable. They can be, sued, or the people can defend themselves and be in the right. Whereas right now with cops, you try to sue them, that good luck. They have their internal affairs, which they investigate themselves. And if you try to defend yourself when you've been wrongly accused and they're trying to arrest you, you're probably going to get killed. So that's one decent check in that system.
I thought that it was if you, like in your scenario, if somebody was accused of stealing, they wouldn't just necessarily nab you off the streets. It would be like, okay, we've compiled all this evidence, etc., and now we're going to accuse you. It's not like you're going to get locked up and thrown in a cage. It's like, okay, we want you to pay restitution or damages, etc., or return property. Yes. And just be kind of a mediator between the two parties involved, and find some kind of an agreement there. And there would also be like kind of a defensive aspect maybe to insurance companies. Maybe it would be called something else, where you would have, the one accused of theft would have somebody on your side saying, hey, this guy didn't do it, here's the evidence proving that he didn't, etc. I thought it was something along those lines, not necessarily just nabbing somebody off the streets. Because I've had this conversation a lot, and that was something that made me more comfortable with the whole, private security policing. It's not necessarily policing, but private security. That it was like, you're not just going to get snagged. Like, they know who you are, they know your name, they've accused you, you're still going about your business. If you run away and disappear, like, okay, well, obviously he's probably guilty, But
Yeah. No, you're
it's
absolutely
more.
right.
It wouldn't be set up the same way as it is now. You know, the way we look at the quote unquote justice system things, it would be in no way the same. You know, our current system is set up in a way that it's very authoritarian. Like the police accuse you, and like before, it's no longer innocent until proven guilty. It's guilty until proven innocent.
Yep.
So it would be very different.
Yeah, absolutely it would. You're right. That's the process it would be. The fear of being nabbed was brought up by the person I was talking to, and I think you're right. It would absolutely
Yeah.
be more of a kind of like how it works now on, say, eBay or Amazon. There's arbitration between two parties if someone feels ripped
Yep.
off, and it works great.
It does. It works better than most things. I mean, sometimes it falls through, but I dealing with situations like that, I've never had a problem with it, and I always felt like the outcome was all right and acceptable. And if I agreed on it, I agreed on it.
Yeah, the only problem
And
I've
that's
had.
the thing is, it should be.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's the thing is, it should be like it should be de-escalating the situation instead of making it even more. Like, oh, he stole something. Okay, now we're going to go assault him and kidnap him. Like now that situation has been escalated, right?
Oh, big
All
time.
because this guy stole, a phone or like something random. Who knows? Maybe it was more, but whatever the situation is, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's usually almost 100% of the time escalated to something else that it should not be. Sometimes death.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, it should be de-escalation and focus on restitution, not punishment. And that's where Konkin in New Libertarian Manifesto really takes it past, excuse me, where Rothbard went, because he doesn't believe in punishment for these crimes as long as everything is paid back. The object that was stolen is either returned or replaced, and the time involved in recovering it and all that, you're compensated for that, and that falls on the aggressor, and that makes total sense.
yeah, and he also spoke on the apprehension rate currently of crimes, etc. That people don't get caught for the things, so they're more likely to do these things. I believe in a situation with like private security companies like that going about it, that the apprehension rate would be much higher, and people would be far less likely to, why are you going to commit these crimes if you're probably almost immediately going to get caught and then have to, you gain nothing from it. Plus now your reputation is smeared.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it were a combination of the two things that we've been talking about with, strong communities and maybe insurance and private security, it would really just be a fallback for the one or two really bad things that happen every once in a while, because a strong community of people who are responsible for their own actions aren't going to be aggressing against each other. And maybe if something new enters that environment, a new person, whatever, and something goes down, there's something to fall back on. That's not, a group with a monopoly on violence with no accountability.
Yeah, and I mean, we're never going to get rid of crime. It's always going to exist. There's
Sure.
the thinking that suddenly we're going to have no crime and there's going to be no murders or rapes or anything like that. Like that's utopian thinking. Like that's just not in the cards for humanity.
Yeah, the statist utopia of just the right amount of oppression will stop all the bad things from happening.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous. But I'd like to hear anybody else's solutions on this stuff, because I like the ideas of strong communities, neighborhood watches, that kind of stuff. The apps that people can come up with, private security, insurance, all that stuff. But I'm sure there's more to it. I'm sure there's tons of other good ideas, and I'd love to hear them. If you hit us up on the Podstash Facebook page or email at dankpodstash@gmail.com. Hit me up on Facebook, Nick Irwin, and David Ballantyne. We'd love to hear that stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm always down for conversation if it's semi-respectful.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we have to have respect amongst each other if we're going to make anything happen.
True that.
That was one other thing the other day
We
too.
coming up.
Um, I saw a thing. It was a dude got arrested leaving a Walmart or something. Him and his friend were walking, and two cops were following him out. They hadn't done anything wrong, and he ended up getting, violently slammed to the ground and arrested just for not being having a respectful tone of voice or using respectful words to this cop who was harassing him and following him. And people are saying, well, if you'd just been respectful to the guy, this wouldn't have happened. And it's like, you know what? Fuck that. That guy doesn't deserve any respect when he's following him out of a store, accusing him of something he didn't do, and harassing him. Why in the hell would that guy ever deserve respect? Or any cop in any instance deserve respect when they don't earn it one bit? That's a ridiculous way to say that to avoid these situations. Just respect these guys who screw you over at any opportunity.
Yeah, that's absurd. I don't understand. He's got on a magic costume, so therefore he can do whatever he wants, and you just have to put a smile on your face and say yes, sir. No thanks.
That's ridiculous. It's kind of like the Andy Griffith thing I was talking about before, and community policing and stuff. If there's a community of people that want to choose, one person from among them to be that force in their community, then so be it. That's a whole lot different from the government coming in and saying, all right, we're putting our guys in here and you got to respect them. You got to do what they say. And they have the right to, use violence against you if you don't. Because there's instances where there's people who can't defend themselves necessarily, and having a representative in that situation is a good thing.
Sure, I completely agree with that.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think you said before we are coming up on that hour, so I think we're going to go ahead and call it.
All right. Well, if you guys are listening on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff that lots of people say at the end of these things. Check out our Facebook page, Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. If you're a business owner, shoot us an email at dankpodstash@gmail.com. See if you can get us to plug you out there and get you some more sales and people looking at your stuff. And come join us in the Washington State's Anarchist and Libertarian Facebook group. We're trying to get that built up with more local people so we can find local solutions to some of the problems that we all face. And I'll see you guys next time.
All right, we'll see you.